Okay, so this is an image that I've opened and I'm looking at it, and I think that the whites are a bit creamy looking, the reds are a little bit orangey looking, and the green has a bit of an orange cast going through that as well. So I think that the white balance hasn't been quite set the correct way. The detail down around here is quite good. You'll see that the image is reasonably symmetrical all the way down here, and it's not bad looking. The lighting has been coming in from this direction, so you can see shadows cutting across here, but there is a beautiful bit of texture there, so the shadow doesn't bother me that much. What I am going to do, because this image would be for a miniature project, I'm going to decide the size on this needs to be 8 by 6 inches. So I'm first going to go to my crop tool, and I'm going to put in a custom size of width, height and resolution. If I type in 8IN, it tells the software that I mean or intend to use the measurement of inches, so please do make sure that you put IN in for inches. And I'm going to put in 6IN, and because it's photographic, I'm going to use 300 pixels, and I have to make sure that it's per inch. Okay, so whenever you initially go into the crop tool and you put in your width and your height, because we've put in 8 inches wide by 6 inches high, it's gone for a landscape orientation. I would like that to be a portrait orientation. There's a little set of arrows here, and if I click that once, it swaps the height and the width and makes it into a portrait orientation. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is this section of the napkins, I would like to place along the left vertical row of thirds, and I intend to make it look like a check mark. Now, I may have to rotate this slightly because that's not 100% straight, and nor would I expect it to be. But if I go to the outside of the handles here on the crop tool, you'll see how the cursor changes to that little double-ended arrow cursor that has a curve in it. And if I click my mouse and hold that down, what I'm aiming to do is to line up, and this is a very good line here for me to use, and just nudge that across. Make sure you don't hit the middle bit. And if I look at that line, it doesn't run perfectly down the line, but that's okay. I'm just going to nudge it up a little bit. I'm using my arrow keys here, folks. Now, the aim here is as well that the corners of the crop do not go off the image. And you'll see there that as the image is rotated around, it still fits my 8 inches by 6 inch crop at 300 pixels per inch. And I'm going to OK that by pressing return on my keyboard. Okay, so that's completely changed the composition of the image. So that was the before, and that is the after. So you'll see that the composition has drastically changed. Now I'm going to take a wee look at the exposure values of the whole thing. So I'm just going to change from my crop tool to my move tool, because the move tool is one of the safest tools to be on. For anything which is to do with color enhancements, anything to do with color, it's always in the image and adjustments menus. The first thing I'm going to try here is auto color, and the computer does that for me, and I think personally that that's gone a little bit too cool for me. So I'm just going to do Control Z. If you're on a Mac, it'll be Command Z, and that just brings back the warmth. So instead of me doing the auto color, I'm going to go into adjustments, and I'm going to ask for levels. And what this allows me to do is to manipulate the coloration myself to suit myself. Okay, so we know here that in the levels dialog box we have a histogram, which is this graph looking item that I'm hovering over at the moment. And we have a little black slider, which is our shadows, and if I take that way up to the right, you'll see the image gets very dark. And if I grab the highlights, the little white slider, if I take that way down to the left, it gets incredibly bright, and more information gets blown out. If, however, I grab the mid-tones and I move that up to the left, it gets brighter, but not completely blown out. And if it goes down to the right, it gets darker, but again, not lacking a huge amount of detail. There's still some detail there. So this is maybe one of the things that you might want to use. Now, again, we have a preview, and if I unpreview that, you'll see there I've just softened up the shadows slightly. And I think I'm happy with that about there. So I'm going to click OK. Okay, so I'm going to come down here to the bottom right, On the little icon I'm currently on, this is the adjustments icon, and whenever I click on that, I'm going to ask for hue and saturation. I would like to make my reds a little bit redder and my green a more definite green without this sort of yellowish tone on it. So whenever I click hue and saturation, first of all, because this is an adjustment layer, it automatically generates its own layer to appear in. And you'll see there's the layer. And if I just move these sliders about, so the hue slider, whenever I move this from left to right, all colors within the image will change. It can be quite good for color shifting and things. May not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is quite good for some things. I'm just going to reset that to 0. Okay, with your saturation, the more I take it to the left, the more the item desaturates. And you can see there it's a different feel to the image now. And the more I take it to the right, the stronger the colours get. It also emphasises how much yellow is actually in the image. So I'm just going to put that back to 0 as well. Then we have lightness. If we move the lightness to the left, the image gets darker. And if we move it to the right, the image gets brighter. So let's just give you a quick flavour of what they do. This, of course, was in the master. Within the master, all colours change, but I want to change just several colours by themselves. So I want to go to yellows first of all, and I want to desaturate any yellow. And you'll see there that we've perfectly nice white napkins now, but this green was made up predominantly of yellow, so we have a problem. So we have to compromise that our napkins have to be maybe slightly off-white to get kind of what we're looking for. I'm then going to go to the reds, and I want to increase the red slightly, but maybe also just color shift it a little bit. Okay, so I'll just give you a wee demo here of color shifting the reds only. Now, I don't want a huge amount, but I'd like them to be a little bit darker as well. Okay, so in the master, if I increase the saturation, you'll see you can get a nice little change there to the image. Now I don't want to change the lightness too much, because if I take that up to the right, this bit here becomes more blown out and the rest of it starts to look a bit washy. And if I take it down too far to the left, everything just looks dull as well. Doesn't look very nice. And again, that saturation can be switched on and off at any point in time. And you'll see there it has made a difference up to that top right hand corner. So coming back down here to the adjustments layer, I'm going to add brightness and contrast. Now this is quite nice because it's a layer by itself. Again, if I increase the brightness of most of the image, say we'll go for 30 there, and the contrast I'm going to boost that to 20. If I switch that off and on, you can see there's a huge difference to the coloration of everything. And then this bright corner here, the beauty of this little thumbnail that I'm hovering over at the moment, these are called masks. They're layer masks. And if I have black in the foreground, and if I choose the paintbrush, I make that nice and large. So let me just increase the size of my brush. And that's 100% opaque black. So if I flip the colours over again and just soften up the whites, and this wee edge here as well, I'm not too bothered about the shadow there. I think that's actually quite nice. I put a wee bit of detail in there again. I may just take this down to about 20 this time and just over the edge there. Okay, so just to show you the overall beginning. So this reverts it to how we bought the image in. Okay, so this was the original, and I'm just going to take it back a step, and that is going to be the finished item for the project. Now there's only one other thing that I would really like to do here, and that is to sharpen the image up. You will see that there's beautiful detail all along here, And there is a few other wee bits and pieces we could clear up really, but I'm not going to worry too much about the finery of the whole detail. I'm simply just going to click on layer 0 and I'm going to duplicate that through the layer menu and duplicate layer. And you're just going to agree with that. You can give this a name if you want to, you don't have to. And on that top copy, we're then going to go to filter, other, and high pass. This is for sharpening. So initially, whenever we get into the high pass dialog box, and this is what you don't do, if we put the radius to 0, you will be met with a complete page of grey where you don't see any detail coming through. If you increase that slightly, you start to see some of the edges coming through. So these lines that are quite defined, that is going to be where some of the sharpness would be applied to, but we want to get some sharpness underneath as well. So I'm going to take it up to about the 4.8, and again we can preview and unpreview that. If I just keep increasing that slightly, you'll see that more and more lines start to come in. Now when you get to this stage where you've lost your definite lines, you've overcooked up. If you can't see any grey at all, it means that your image will not sharpen up. 25 pixel radius on this may be a bit excessive, whereas around the 8 mark seemed to be quite good for this particular image. That would not be for every image. Whenever I click OK on that, you're left with the grey. Now you'll see that there is a dark grey smudge here and a dark grey smudge there. That is because your brightness layer is above your sharpening layer, but that's nothing to worry about at this point in time. And in order to make it proper sharpening, on that top layer, that grey layer, you then need to go from normal to soft light. And just to show you how much that has sharpened up by, switch that layer on and off several times. And you can see, let's just zoom in a bit so we can see this much better. You see those edges crisping up. Okay, so if I switch it off, they're slightly softer. Switch it on, slightly more crisp. Now you can over sharpen. It's one of the problems that people encounter. They over sharpen things. You can even see down here on this lovely bubble texture that it's now unsharpened and it's resharpened. So if I just zoom out a tad, at this level it will be incredibly subtle. But if you feel that you have over sharpened on your high pass layer, which is layer 0 copy here, on that layer again you can decrease the opacity of the layer, which will also soften the sharpening. So it will still be sharp, but not as sharp. Okay, so let's just show you. So this is 100% sharpening. And if I take that down to 60%, if you keep an eye on the image around here, some of the sharp areas will go up and down. Okay, so that's 20% sharpening versus 100%. I usually take it down to about 80 because I do have a habit of over sharpening and I know it. Now, whenever we go to save this particular document, because of the inclusion of layers, when I go to File and Save, it automatically comes up as a PSD format, okay, which is Photoshop document. That means that the layers will remain intact. However, if we want to save this as a straight copy JPEG, where all the layers squish into one, you need to change your Photoshop, your PSD format, into a JPEG format. I'm just going to give this a different title. I'm putting in today's date, 23rd of the 11th, 14. And whenever I click on save, those napkins will save, but it will give us a JPEG quality options dialog box first of all. And on our JPEG quality options, because we're working with photographic quality, you must make the quality a size 12 all of the time. Whenever you have that as a quality of 12, whenever you click the OK button, you will have a copy and only a copy of what is on screen saved out into your destination folder.